guys, this is Robin with Weight Loss Apocalypse. I'm so excited to give to you today another video from my archives. I just found a treasure trove of videos that I recorded. These were recorded in 2009. This was 2 years before I published Weight Loss Apocalypse, but it was also about a year and a half, 2 years after I started helping people with the Dr. Simeons HCG protocol. So I'm going to give you some history about this video. So I started helping people with Dr. Simeons protocol in 2007, later 2007. And there's no science available. We have Dr. Simeons pounds and inches. And anytime I would go out to try to find studies, it always came back to those kind of negative studies that it didn't work, that, you know, people didn't have a significant change in hunger and or areas or pounds of weight loss. And over the course of about a year and a half, 2 years, I worked with people interested in it. But my goal was to understand it and because my background and my degree is in exercise science, or you could say exercise physiology, and the kind of looking at it from a biological point of view, energy fueling systems, and kinesiology. So my curiosity about it was really my main drive. And when someone came to us to do the protocol, I was very thorough in studying their body before they started it, during the process, and then afterwards. So I wrote about this. I think this is in Weight Loss Apocalypse in chapter 16 or 17. I spill out all of the measurements and stuff, the data I collected. Anyways, so we before we started people on the protocol, we would do, you know, resting heart rate, blood pressure, a fitness evaluation to include flexibility testing, muscular endurance, strength, cardiovascular. We also did body fat compositions using 2 different caliper tests and charts. We would do on top of the weight to then break down their body fat composition. But we also did their resting energy expenditure or metabolism through an indirect calorimeter. And then during the protocol, each week we did the evaluations again, everything but the metabolism and the fitness evaluation. But we did do circumference measurements, body fat testing, perceived hunger, and all that jazz. And then we continue to do it after they were done with the protocol. And then after a while, we would do their metabolism again. Anyways, over a course of a year, I ended up collecting data from well over 100 to 200 people. And at some point, to understand the significance of it, I had a professor at Boise State do a statistical analysis of which was very significant. What was most telling was the increase in metabolism. That was statistically significant. Anyways, so in 2009, I had all this data already collected, and I was seeking answers to why. Why is it that everything I had learned in college and about starvation and about dieting was completely conflicting with the evidence that I had with the HCG protocol? So I started to, I actually reached out to some local doctors and endocrinologists and to see if there was anybody who understood. And there was one doctor that actually responded to me, and he was not just an endocrinologist that specialized in diabetes, but he was also a PhD. And we had set up a meeting, and I was really excited, thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to have some answers for me that's going to really help me be able to explain this to people in an updated, more relevant explanation. I just didn't feel good talking about Dr. Simeons' 3 types of fat. It just didn't make sense to me. So he had no answers for me. I left that meeting kind of dejected. But he did leave me with something very important, and he gave me a challenge. He said, why don't you create a hypothesis why you think this might be working, because right now I don't know, and so I kind of left thinking, oh, you know what, I'm so done. I'm so done. I can't even get over this. But then at the same time, I was like, but you know what, he's right. I really should look into this, and I guess I will. I will create a hypothesis. And that began a very important studying for me. I mean, I was devoutly studying cellular biology and the mechanisms of fat metabolism, of which I learned in college. But I graduated in 2000. This was 2009. And the body of science specific to leptin and fat metabolism had exploded between that time, right? Leptin was discovered in 1997. You can imagine between 2000 and up into 2009, the amount of evidence studying and endocrinology in relation to leptin and other fat hormones that I had at my fingertips. So I essentially had to teach myself this physiology. And I did. And it was, I initially thought that HCG was connected to human growth hormone. And I kind of hit some roadblocks there. And then as I got more and more frustrated looking at the science of starvation, I decided I need to look at fat metabolism in pregnancy. And I did not think there would be anything out there. This is kind of such a niche area of science, but hello, there's a ton of science in energy mechanisms and metabolism when you're pregnant. So I immediately found the science that linked HCG to leptin and the modulation of those two and the negative feedback loop between those two in the research of pregnancy. So what I had to do then was apply that to starvation in a non-pregnant person injecting HCG. And once I put those two together, it was just so obvious to me. And so before, it was just difficult and 12 hours a day of really studying a little obsessively. And all of a sudden, this connection linked, and it was like, aha, the answer showed up, and it became so obvious and easy. And I needed to get everything that was in my head now, consolidated into something I could explain to a person, to a doctor that didn't understand the protocol, because at that point I had come to so many roadblocks with doctors trying to explain this to them when they would just say 3 types of fat. That sounds so dumb. There's no science. And so I finally had some science to pull together. So that was in 2009. So this is a presentation. It's like an initial presentation that I was creating for people on Facebook, for people studying the protocol, because I knew there wasn't much out there. And you can tell I'm a little raw with this, still trying to bring the words that I had learned and the process forward to be able to present it. So that's what you're about to watch, is one of my first kind of videos of me explaining the cellular mechanics or biology of fat metabolism and how it changes with starvation, and how HCG, at the amounts that Dr. Simeons prescribed, might influence the fat cell so that you don't experience starvation. So yeah, and then it took, 2 years from this video for me to actually get it written, get it, edited and published into Weight Loss Apocalypse. That is available to you and has been since 2011. So currently, the science of all of this is not changing at all. It's amazing. This is, so simple. But, now that it's 2018, I have over 7 years since publishing Weight Loss Apocalypse. I've spent this amount of time studying the emotional issues with body image and how that impacts people's relationship with food. And that's where I'm going with this updated, or this addition to Weight Loss Apocalypse that will be published this year. So if hopefully you're not confused by this, but I hope you enjoy. And I have a couple more videos because there's a set, I think, of 4 that I did with this one, and I'll be posting those later. I hope you like this video. If you need help, I work with YouTube followers, and if you haven't joined the Patreon group, that is primarily, it's all of the videos that I've recorded with clients. These are our sessions together working on eating disorders, emotional eating, the HCG protocol, body image issues, and some of it is actually personal issues with marriage and whatnot. But you can join that group. It's $5 a month. There's a link below as well. So, all right. Enjoy this little science education. Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Robin with the Mind Body Method for the HCG Weight Loss Group on Facebook. And this is the first of 3 videos explaining my theory on how HCG and the very low calorie protocol created by Dr. Simeons, how it may improve metabolic rate and how it may work. So this first video is an explanation of, at the fat cell, the explanation of how your fat is utilized as energy. So we are going to start with an adipocyte, which is a cell of fat. And you can imagine a pound of fat has thousands and thousands of these cells, okay? So you have a cell full of fat, and inside that cell, there's something called a mitochondria, okay? This mitochondria is where your fat is utilized for energy, okay? So what we're gonna talk about on this video clip is how does this get into your mitochondria? Because in order for this fat to be used as energy, it has to get into the mitochondria. It doesn't just sit out here and then just boil off and create energy. It has to go into this mitochondria. So the first thing you need to understand is that this mitochondria, there's pathways that your fat gets into the mitochondria, or there's doors. And if you want to use the correct terminology, ATP1 and APT2. Oh, excuse me, CPT1 and CPT2, okay? Or I'm just going to call them doors. So the doors to get into your mitochondria. Well, these doors swing open or shut, and there's a couple of hormones that control whether or not the doors are open to get into this mitochondria. The first hormone I'm going to talk about is melanoCoA. MelanoCoA, as melanoCoA rises, the doors shut. So you can imagine if those doors shut, no fat can get into the mitochondria. Therefore, you don't utilize this fat as energy. Okay? So, what controls melanoCoA? Well, when your blood glucose levels start to decline, as they go down, okay, leptin, which is the second hormone we're going to talk to, declines. So leptin is the second hormone we're going to talk about. So as blood glucose levels go down, leptin levels reduce. Okay? As leptin levels reduce, melanoCoA increases. Okay? So when leptin goes away, melanoCoA increases, all of the doors start to shut, less fat gets into the mitochondria. So basically, as your blood glucose levels drop, your fat metabolism slows down. And in a way, this is how the human body has survived long periods of famine. And this system preserves your fat so that it can last longer, so that you can live longer. So what happens when your blood glucose levels rise? So after you consume food, your blood glucose levels rise. So as blood glucose levels rise, insulin rises. Okay? When there's more insulin, when there's more leptin, so we're talking leptin, when glucose rises, leptin rises. As leptin rises here in the fat cell, melanoCoA goes down. which means these doors start swinging open. So leptin basically doesn't necessarily open or shut the doors, but what leptin does is it controls the hormone that can open and shut the door. So as leptin levels rise, melanocortin goes down, and fat starts rushing into every single pathway that it can to get into that mitochondria, and it goes through what's called the Krebs cycle, and your body creates energy or ATP from there. So what would happen on the Dr. Simeons 500 calorie protocol if you didn't have HCG? Well, blood glucose levels would go down, leptin levels would go down, melanocortin would go up, which means these doors would then start shutting, fat metabolism would slow down, and your fat would be preserved then for more time. Now, that's not necessarily what we want if we're trying to lose fat in the atmosphere and lifestyle that we have here in the United States. Unfortunately, our body doesn't know that. So with that drop in fat metabolism, your body's got to find its energy from somewhere. So if your body, let's say, needs 2,000 calories per day, and you're only eating 500, so 500 comes from food, some of this is going to come from some of these doors still being open, okay? So let's say 800 comes from fat. That's just an estimate. Well, then you've got about 1,200 calories that your body's got to find from elsewhere. And this is where, with that drop in leptin, that drop in fat metabolism, your body then goes into muscle usage. So it's got to find that energy from somewhere, so it pulls from your muscle or your lean tissue, and that's what we don't want. So what does this have to do with the protocol? Well, where does HCG come into the situation? Well, what they found in research with a placenta of a pregnant woman is that if you inject a placenta with HCG post-delivery, that it produces leptin immediately within 6 minutes. And they found that 100 international units of HCG created the most stimulus of leptin. So let's say you go on a 500 calorie diet and you're injecting something like HCG. My hypothesis is that your leptin is going to stay elevated, even though your blood sugar or glucose levels are dropping because of lack of food intake. So if your leptin levels stay elevated and your demand for energy increases, if you can keep all these doors open into the mitochondria, you're going to have improved fat metabolism, even with reduced calories, based on the fact that your leptin doesn't decline like it normally would with lower blood glucose levels. So that is the difference with or without HCG. With HCG, stimulus of leptin without even having to eat, increased access into the mitochondria, increased fat utilization, less need for your body to pull from lean storage to provide what it needs to keep and maintain blood glucose levels. So that is the finish to this explanation. If you have questions, feel free to post them or email me at robin@themindbodymethod.com.